Hey, welcome back. It's been a while since we've connected. I hope your family has been safe and healthy through some crazy last 12, 13, 14 weeks. At Body in Motion, we have been fortunate where we have had very little, if any, exposure to COVID. And then we've done a great job, in my opinion, of keeping our facility clean, disinfected, cleaning up before and after every session. We've got hand sanitizer stations throughout the facility. We've done a great job, in my opinion. So we're back up and running, as you know, and are doing well. So hope you're doing well again, and hopefully we play a ton of golf. That's one of the things that we can do at this point. So, but along with that comes physical ailments with back pain, tight hips. If you're walking a ton around, your calves and your feet take a beating. So make sure you're taking care of your flexibility, mobility, your soft tissue work with foam rollers and maybe tennis balls, lacrosse balls, those kind of things. It's that important to take care of it, okay? If you need to get in here for a stretching session, mobility session, we can do that. If you need to see Sarah for some soft tissue work, let us know, okay? But for this month, something I'd like to talk about is the pivot in the golf swing. If you're one of the instructors on my newsletter, or if you're one of my clients, or we've met, but we don't currently train together, you know that I don't teach the golf swing. I do not cross that line. I leave that up to the instructors and up to their style, their philosophy, their understanding of the golf swing. I let them run with it. I'm happy to do what I do. I love what I do on the physical side of golf, injury prevention, getting people stronger, working on power production, and just keep people playing this game as long as we can, all right? So, but in my own lessons, in my own game, and in the lessons that I've attended of individuals that teach the golf swing, the instructors that teach the pivot well, they communicate it well, their vocabulary around it is good, they communicate it in a simple form that the student can understand. The instructors that I've met and taken lessons from that teach the pivot well, and this is the pivot for me as a right-handed golfer, what happens as I'm pivoting around the axis of my spine, you could say, and as the parabola of my hips is working on its axis, what does that pivot look like? I've got some instructors that I know that teach, let's keep the right knee flexed and really work on loading that trail hip. I've got some instructors that love to just let that leg straighten out, let this hip get back as far as they can, and have done a little research on the connection with that move being better for the low back. I agree with that, just because it allows the lumbar spine to go ahead and do what it's going to do, versus if I keep the right knee flexed, now I've got some torque, some tension on that lumbar spine. That's really good for speed, but it's not good for long term. So very rarely do I communicate on what I do and don't like, because there are a ton of different instructors on my newsletter. But when it comes to my part, keeping the body healthy, what we're seeing is that keeping that trail knee flexed is wreaking havoc on the lumbar spine, because it's not necessarily that move, keeping the right knee flexed. They don't understand that if I keep the right knee flexed, I have to make a big shoulder turn this way in making sure I don't get if you want to call it reverse pivot or reverse, whatever you want to call it, all right? So the right knee staying flexed isn't bad in itself. It's the understanding of, if you're going to do that, this has to turn in a proper way. They cannot go the other way if you're going to ask them to do that. So, but what are the physical demands of either style of pivot that you might be teaching? Right knee flexed or right knee extending? Well, lower body stability, number one, so we don't have any swaying or sliding. That's quads, hamstrings, strong glutes. What's going on in the ankles, our connection to the ground? Is it mobile or is it tight? And then a ton of core strength, and then a ton of lat flexibility or mobility, so that we can get width or extension, whatever you want to call it, as we're rotating, and a ton of thoracic spine rotation so that we can rotate, okay? We want to be able to keep a little bit of inclination through our shoulders as we rotate, as we get extension, with good lower body stability. So regardless of what style you teach and whether or not you agree with what I think is appropriate in keeping the body healthy and saving the low back over the next 25, 30 years for a young player, there are physical demands that have to be met in both styles of pivots. Does that make sense? So my job is to keep the thoracic spine mobile, keep the lats long, lengthened, or flexible, whatever you want to call it, so that people can get width, so they don't just fake rotation and lift the hands. We know that's a nightmare waiting to happen. Give them a strong lower body, glutes, legs, powerful, and give them a strong core. That's here and here, low back as well, so that they can learn how to turn, transfer energy, and then hopefully properly sequence. So that's a lot of information, and it's something you might not have ever dove into in your own lessons or own instruction, or if you've ever had lessons, you might not have ever been, discussed that topic. But with a lot of instructors on my newsletter and a lot of students that do take lessons, I think understanding the pivot and understanding the physical demands of the pivot are important, okay? And that's just the backside, the backswing, okay, side of things. So you got a whole nother side of the pivot is, how do I transition? How do I start the downswing? Well, it depends on, are you wanting to play a cut, a fade, a draw, high shot, low shot? It depends on, your athletic ability. It depends on, do you have joint replacements? Do you have a microdiscectomy? Do you have fusions in your spine? Most people understand that we need to start the pivot, the transition with at least some type of lower body, maybe bump, or a bump and rotation, whatever you want to do, okay? But that's just, today's topic is just backswing pivot. But there are physical demands that we have to meet, all right? So that's why I'm here. If you have students that are having trouble with that, if you're having trouble with that yourself, let me know. We can test you, evaluate you, give you a physical assessment, and help you understand why you can't do what your instructor is asking you to do. Or if you're an instructor, why your students can't do what you're asking them to do, okay? If you're taking lessons, your instructor has two choices. They can teach around the limitation, or you can get it fixed and they can do what you're asking them to do. As an instructor, you have the same two choices. You can teach around their limitations, or you can send them to somebody that you know or are comfortable with, hopefully myself, that does a great job, and get those limitations fixed. And then hopefully in the next 2-3 weeks they can start to make some progress. Then you can teach whatever style you want because they move well. All right? So a lot of information, a little bit longer video than normal. Hopefully you've hung in there till the end. Again, I hope you're safe, hope you're healthy, hope you've got good plans for the summer as we head into the holiday season here. Let me know if you need help. My information is below. Happy to help you out, all right?